Hello and welcome to another episode of Vermont's 100 Covered Bridges. Today I am at the Cornish Windsor Bridge, which is in, so if I turn the camera around, I'm in the town of Windsor. The far end of the bridge, you're in the town of Cornish. But the story doesn't end there, because currently I am standing in the state of Vermont. If I go to the far end of the bridge, I'm standing in the state of New Hampshire. So welcome to the Cornish Windsor Bridge, and also welcome to New Hampshire. As you saw me drive through the bridge, I then crossed into New Hampshire. Now, the first thing you may have noticed is there's traffic coming both ways. It is okay to walk the bridge, but I'm not going to try it. Mainly because the biggest hazard is that I've got to walk back. So doing it once is probably going to test a lot of drivers' nerves and patience. Doing it twice, maybe pushing my luck a little bit. But there's certainly a lot of history about the bridge, a lot of history about the river, and we're going to detail all of that right now. As you can see here, traffic coming both ways. And this is, I know I said it at the Bartonsville Bridge and I said it at the Williamsville Bridge, but this has to be the busiest bridge that I've been to so far. I'd love to walk through it, but it isn't going to happen. So the best side, or really the only side you can view the bridge from, is the New Hampshire side. There isn't any parking space of any kind on the Vermont side. So if you come over here, there's this nice big large parking area, so you can get many cars. I'd have parked mine a bit better if there was other cars here, but there's nobody here, so I'm not really bothered. Now there's a couple of historical markers here, so I can show you those. The Cornish Windsor Bridge, built in 1866 at the cost of $9,000. This is the longest wooden bridge in the United States and the longest two-span covered bridge in the world. The fourth bridge at this site, the 460-foot structure, was built by Bella J. Fletcher of Claremont and James H. Tasker of Cornish. And it was Tasker who built the Stoughton Bridge, the Upper Falls Bridge, and the Salmon Bridge. So he's built 4 of the 6 bridges that we've been to today. It was using a lattice truss painted by Phill Town, and it was built as a toll bridge by a private corporation. The span was purchased by the state of New Hampshire in 1936 and made toll-free in 1943. I've got a funny little story about that one coming up. Here's another sort of plaque saying in the second half of the 80s it became clear that this bridge would need substantial repairs. I think that this stone monument needs substantial repairs. Anyway, glad to see that the bridge is still here. What I want to do is, because it says it's the longest wooden bridge in the United States, there's a little bit of a debate over that. And I'm not going to talk about that here right now because there's too many cars going past. What I will do is voice over when I get home, and I can do it in a nice and peace and quiet. But for now, I'll leave you with some more views of the Cornish Windsor Bridge. Here's a shot from upstream with Vermont on the other side, on the other bank. know I'm repeating myself here. I'd love to. I'd love to. Do you know what? Let's do it. And I'll give you some commentary whilst I'm doing it. So the longest covered bridge in the United States is the Smolan Gulf Bridge, which is over the Ashtabula River, which is in the state of Ohio. It's a 4-span Pratt truss bridge built in 2008 and is 613 feet long, so it's over double the length of the Cornish Windsor Bridge. However, it's not a historical bridge and it's not truly wooden. They've got about 3 tons of steel in there to keep it going. So although it's the longest, it's not the longest historical covered bridge in America. And now we have another little bone of contention, because the Medora Bridge, which is in Indiana, can also claim to be the longest wooden and historical covered bridge. It all depends on where you're measuring it from. So if we're talking about trusses, then the Cornish Windsor Bridge is the longest. The Medora covered bridge, which is in Indiana, is slightly shorter in terms of the truss. So here we have the Cornish Windsor Bridge is 449.5 feet long against 434 with the Medora Bridge when you're measuring the truss. However, the span distance, which is the distance between the faces of the abutments, the Medora Bridge is greater than the Cornish Windsor Bridge. Here we got 430.4 feet of the Medora Bridge versus 422 inches with the Cornish Windsor Bridge. Nice wall on both sides. And what we've got to do now or what I've got to do now is go back. Wish me luck. So alcohol played a big part in the use of the bridge. In the 19th century, Vermonters were deeply divided on the issue of alcohol. The anti-alcohol groups called their movement the temperance movement, and that they wanted to temper drinkers' habits, not ban them outright. It was drunkenness they opposed, not drinking per se. However, over time, a growing core within the movement would begin to push for complete prohibition. By the 1840s, temperance leaders who had hoped moral suasion would be enough were pushing for legislative action. They didn't want to merely limit alcohol consumption, they wanted to prohibit it. The legislature responded in 1844 by passing a local option system. Selling alcohol was banned in all communities except those that voted to approve the granting of liquor licenses. In 1852, the legislation went further, narrowly passing an outright prohibition on alcohol. But before the law would go into effect, legislators wanted to gauge public opinion. This meant that in 1 year you could get a complete ban on alcohol, but then the following year it would be, okay, well, not so much beer and wine, but or cider, but just the hard stuff, the whiskey and the vodka. And then the following year, all of alcohol would be banned except for medicinal uses. But of course, then with the advent of the First World War, prohibition kicked in. What this meant when Vermont was a dry state and New Hampshire was seen as a wet state is you would see the regulars in Windsor crossing over the bridge into New Hampshire to have their drink on a Friday night, Saturday night, probably every night. And they were charged 2 cents to cross from Windsor into Cornish. However, the crafty New Hampshire people organising the tolls charged them $3 to return. So it was only $2 to go, but they had to pay $3 to return back to dry Vermont. actually thought I wouldn't be able to do this. I thought the river would either be too deep or you just couldn't get down to it. I was able to scramble down that bank around the corner, but here they have this concrete slab right next to the abutment, so I am actually right underneath the Cornish Windsor Bridge. The car's going over. It sounds like a roller coaster as it passes you by. Hopefully you can see. I mentioned this at the Dummerston Bridge. You can see that how this side of the pier is pointed. It's like a nose, and this side is flat. So again, it doesn't interfere as much with the flow. So the Connecticut River is 406 miles long and flows through 4 of the 6 states in New England. It's the border between New Hampshire and Vermont, and then it goes through Massachusetts, Connecticut, and into the Long Island Sound. At one point, there were 35 covered bridges on the entire length of the Connecticut River. Today, there remains only 3, and all 3 of them are in Vermont. The Cornish Windsor Bridge is the one furthest downstream, and obviously we'll be visiting the other 2 as the series continues. So that's it for now. I'll see you next week in another episode of Vermont's 100 Covered Bridges. Thank you.